What does my craft room look like in 2026? Stay tuned and you'll see. Hello and welcome to or back to Miss Craftsalot's Lair. If you're new here, I mainly do sewing, crochet, and knitting on this channel, not necessarily in that order. However, if that is something that you're interested in, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you here. Also, there are some times that you'll see some other crafty ventures thrown in, and you will now get a chance to see a little bit of extra stuff that I do besides those three. So, a little backstory about this craft room, which I lovingly call the Lair. This is a kind of work in progress. It has been accumulating now for about 25 years. I started crochet early when I was a little kid and loved it, so I kind of stuck with it. And so with that comes yarn, and then comes knitting, obviously, and then the sewing and paper crafting and other stuff kind of followed suit. Now, I did have a smaller room a couple years ago. I think it's still up on my channel. I did take quite a few videos down due to them just not being relevant anymore. However, I did have a smaller room. A couple years ago, I swapped rooms with my daughter to have a bigger craft room. She didn't need all the space. I had quite a bit of stuff in that particular room already, so I'm like, why don't we just swap rooms? Win-win for both of us. So that happened after my husband's grandmother passed away. Within 8 weeks, the other grandmother passed away. So I got the sewing supplies from both of the great grandmas or grandmas. And so from there, my room grew. And so I had to make room for more things. And the last addition to my lair was when my mother-in-law passed away, and I got her entire craft room. So there has been a lot of stuff coming in, getting like filed away and organized and figured out what I really needed to keep and what I did not need to keep. Still a process. So this room can be pretty chaotic sometimes. I did kind of try to de-chaos it for this video because I really, sometimes it is too much for me, I will totally admit. But I'm working through stuff and getting things put away and organized and such, so I can use them because that is the main goal of a craft room, right? So things may not be completely 100% aesthetic. I do have some places that I think I have a really good idea of what I wanted done, and I'm happy with most of it. There are just other things that I need to work through and stuff. So anyway, that being said, you're here for a craft room tour. You're not here for me to yap about my craft room. You want to see it. So I'm going to turn this around. I am on my phone. So I'm going to try my best to not be annoying when it comes to filming. So, yeah. So there is no hiding the chaos. The first thing you see when you walk into my room are these two shelving units. I have my easel for painting here, as well as my ironing board, my larger ironing board. Then on these two shelving units, I have my printer. That is a black and white printer. That printer is lovingly named Molly. She is in charge of printing up all of my patterns that I get online. The PDFs I print out using this. Just black and white. It is a laser jet, so it is a bit easier on ink. So that is why I use that for printing out patterns. My nail supply stuff for when I do my nails. You'll see my nail polishes later, but my gel polishes. That is my nail stuff there. I have some canvases for painting there as well. Down back in there is some of my paints. I've got paints, as you can tell, in there. And more paints back in there. I have also a bunch of stuff that just doesn't have other room in my Lair. Let me back up here so you can get a better look. Just other general stuff. All of my, or most of my bags, project bags are there. Can never have too many of those, I think, especially when you're a serial craft project starter. This duffel bag is the duffel bag I use when I go on vacations to carry my yarn, because I need to be working on something at all times. Various paper crafting stuff is there. I've got stickers and such in there. Down behind there is my serger and a antique sewing machine that I keep back there. Hopefully at some point in time I will have a craft room that's either big enough or empty enough to display those and have those out full time. Serger doesn't get used nearly as much as my regular sewing machine. And saying I am, you can see over here, that is my color printer that I use as far as everything color printing. My business cards and such get printed on that. And then I have my vinyls are hanging out there. I have some blanks on the bottom shelves, and then my shipping stuff for when I have to ship stuff. I have a box here of stuff that I need to go through, as well as that. And when you turn across from there, I have my sublimation station. So obviously that is a shirt press. I have all of the attachments that hang out. Yeah, because we don't want too much damp. I do have my damp red container up there. So sorry. Not sorry, because I need that. So it's got its home there. And then this is my sublimation printer. Some cleaning supplies. And then this is where I keep my polyfill, and I've got foam stuff left over from the kitty beds that I made. Some more vinyl. Those are stamp sets that I would like to sell that are still here. And then more stuff for sale down there that I'm trying to get rid of. That is my husband's maternal grandmother's sewing machine that I have here that just kind of hangs out. It is a Singer. The last I knew, it does work well. I just have not had a need to take it out. I've done some cleaning and such on it, but I haven't run it. And that is the door to, well, we won't even go talk about that. That's not the Lair, but here is my yarn stash. You have seen this before if you have seen my yarn cataloging video, but as you can tell, I have made some progress here. I got empty spots that I didn't have in that video, so I am proud of myself. And this is another place, this is one of the places that I had to de-chaos before making this video. I will post a picture of what that looked like earlier today. I figured you didn't want to see that. This also gives you an opportunity to see all of my yarn stash that I have in this location, because this is not all the yarn I have. We will talk more about that here in a second. But here we have all of my fabric, or a good portion of my fabric, because I have all of my cotton yarn is up here, or cotton fabric. All of my cotton fabric is up here. I have a bag of miscellaneous yarn hanging there, stuff that I didn't want just kind of free floating on my shelf because I don't exactly trust that particular yarn to be out. And then I'm not going to get, I've got more yarn down there, and then this is these two containers here are some of my cotton yarn or my cotton crochet thread yarn, the thin stuff for earrings and such. I will pan back over here because over here I do have a whole other container of that. I have lots of that. That is for sure. So here is my cutting table. It's kind of cluttered right now. I have to run that particular extension cord for the sublimation printer to change out its power cord. However, or power supply rather. However, this is my cutting table. The top was a kitchen table, and we decided that we didn't want that kitchen table anymore, but I liked the size of it, so I thought that it would work out really well for my room. However, it was just a little too high, so in order to make it work a little bit better, I call these 2x2 cubbies from Walmart. So in here I have more fabric. That is my already sewn or cut up for rice pillows. I used to make them out of corn, but I think rice works a little bit better. And then in that particular one I have some fat quarters. Down here I have more packing supplies, tissue paper and stuff for wrapping up stuff. And then in this one, that is all ceramic and glass blanks for use with my vinyl. So this cutting table is actually on two of these. So I have all of my quilting books here, and then there's more stashes of fabric here. Some of it's cotton, some of it is flannel, some of it is just miscellaneous fabric. I just didn't know what to do with it. And then there's that yarn that was hanging up. So here we have my first cutting mat when it came to my quilting. That I have up there hanging up with the mat. Let me see if I can take this down here. With the mat for the Brother Scan and Cut. We will try not to cause any more chaos than we really should in this room. And there is my Scan and Cut. She looks like she's scuffed, but that's just the way the light is hitting her, because she is well taken care of. Let's see, there we go. She is well taken care of. She looks scuffed, but she isn't. And then down here, we have my sewing patterns. So, and a couple of quilting and sewing books that wouldn't fit under the cutting table. I have this particular box here has the ones that are already opened. I am horrible, and I'm probably going to get Stephanie, Canada, please don't come after me, because in here I have sewing patterns that when I use them, I put them in in the larger, I think it's 1 quart, no, 1 gallon Ziploc bags. Keeps all the pieces that I've cut apart together, because I did cut my patterns for quite a while there. Now I think I am getting away from doing that. But I have simplicity patterns, quite a few simplicity patterns, because I tend to like simplicity better. But I also have McCall's and Butterick over here as well. So those are where my sewing patterns are. I have a lot of sewing patterns, and I just picked up 5 more this last week. So I have lots of sewing ahead of me. Also, kind of free floating around here, I have my little tabletop iron board. It's good for small things, but when I'm doing quilts and stuff, I like the big one. So yeah. And now we've come to the fun section, the section that you probably see me in the most recently. This is where I film most of my tutorials. If I'm in the Lair, tutorials, project videos, and such are generally filmed here if I am in the Lair. Sometimes you'll see me in my living room where if I'm more comfortable working on something in my living room, I will do so, but I'm generally in here, especially for my later videos that I've got going on. So obviously my desk, I call this one my paper craft desk, but it's more or less my tutorial desk now. And then over there is my sewing desk. These my webcams, I am switching out from these particular webcams to the 4K webcams. So hopefully my picture will get a little bit better. So I felt I needed to kind of upgrade that, especially after upgrading from Lightworks to DaVinci. I had been planning on either getting a new audio set or new webcams. Webcams work a little easier for me just for the fact that I am not so tech savvy, and so webcams I know are going to hook to my laptop, and I would be able to still live stream and work on tutorials and have OBS running, so then that way I can more seamlessly share. But yeah. So up here I have my Crocodile. I have paper punches up there. I have, okay, so Crocodile. I have my Happy Planner punch, and then I also have a regular 3-hole punch. And then in this box here, the Black & Decker box, that is my electric knife that I use to cut the foam. I highly, highly recommend, if you are going to be working with the foam a lot, to invest in one of those, because it makes it so much easier. Now, these shelving units, I made a video about them years ago, and I don't remember if it's still up. Like I said, I did, or like I think I said, I did end up taking and unlisting quite a few of my videos just for the fact that they were kind of irrelevant. So these are the Iris rolling carts, and I broke them apart. I took them apart. So I have, in these 4 cubbies, I have the 3-drawer sets, and those work out so nicely in these cubbies. I love it. So I still have a little bit of extra room up here that if I need to store something a little bit bigger, I can fit it in there. But they slide right out, and I have it all there. This is extra cutting supplies. I have my audio video extra cords and such in here. Popsicle sticks, because, you know, girls got to have a lot of popsicle sticks. And I've got some other stuff here. That is just some extra cleaner. I think there's a paint in there. Or maybe that's Mod Podge. I'm not sure. This one, if for some reason, is empty. That's going to have to change. But I do have other stuff here. A lot of this is my stamping stuff. So in here I have just regular old stuff to keep up. These are my extras. So my extra pens and such, my extra watercolor pens, I think they're called. I'm out of loop when it comes to the stamping stuff, but I have just regular old, my embossing powders and such. Those are probably not, probably should be getting used soon. You guys have seen this being used quite a bit. I have my yarn for my next pattern sitting here, or my next project sitting here. That is going to be next week's video, hopefully. We'll see. And adhesives and more. All my adhesives are in here. And then I have just general stamping stuff. Underneath, I just have general like storage and stuff. It's not that exciting on the bottom 4 of that. Then we have my sewing desk. I just changed out my buttons. I had 2 containers of buttons, got this container, and I was like, I wonder if all my buttons will fit in there. Let me see if I can get around this chair. Wonder if all my buttons can fit in there. And that is how full it is. So that is a pretty good size jar for buttons. But I have my shipping scale is here. I have other little storage stuff here. My pens and everything. More my tape holders. I have my stapler. Band-Aids because I'm a klutz and I need that. Also, I have Aria treats for when I'm doing live streams because, you know, the puppy needs treats. So, yeah. For that, and I'm still kind of working on that a little bit more because I'm working on being more regular on Twitch. So, for those, I want to make it so then that way if you guys say, hey, you know, puppy treats or whatever, or say her name or something, I would give her a treat. Within reason because, you know, she doesn't need a whole lot. But over here I have the same kind of deal. I have the top to this one here. It was an extra one from tearing them apart, which actually gave me a pretty good space to have my caddy of sewing stuff in here. If I can get it back in there, that'd be great. So over here I have rulers and such. I have my extra little wax paper and tracing stuff. Another empty drawer, somehow that happened. But I have all sorts of stuff. All of my interfacing is in there. I don't know if I got that in camera, but all of my interfacing is back here. I got zippers. All of my thread is in here. Owner's manuals for machines. And miscellaneous. This one's stoppers and Velcro. Stoppers, Velcro, and D-rings and all that stuff is in there. So I have some storage up there that is just some extra stuff that I had. When I'm not stamping, I'm scrapping. That is a sign that was in my mother-in-law's craft room, so it needed to have a home on my wall. I have various other things. There is my flower monster that I made last year. And photos and pictures and Garfield. We like Garfield. Garfield is one that I can relate to. Some clutter back there, but that is one of my first Scentsy wax melt warmers. Wax warmer. Wax. What am I looking for? Melter? Wax? Yeah. Anyway, that is one of my first ones. I got that from my cousin and I absolutely love it. That is an empty container set that I have to figure out what I want to put in it. Sake bottles. My mother-in-law's stamping case, she would take that with her in order to go to different classes and stuff. So that's there, and my horses. My horse playing cards. And then I have various other little knickknacks and such. This truck is one that I collect these trucks so much that I have a full-size one, life-size, in my yard. Hopefully we can get it running within the next couple of years. First step is getting my car going again, though. And then I have Chocobo and my Woobles test, my Worry Stone, Connemara Marble Worry Stone. And here I have more of these. You can see a theme that I really liked how these fit. So I have quite a few of them. There are my gel polishes. Now I don't do my nails too tremendously often, so I probably have too much of it. And then we're getting into the remaining of my Stampin' Up stuff. I have more powders and stamp pads. All of my paper cutting stuff is here. I have a whole bunch of punches those are my sponges. And then all of these are stamp pads. Believe it or not, I actually went through and I gave a friend of mine a bunch of stamp pads as well. So that just gives you a little bit of a hint as to how many stamp pads I really had in this room, which was probably as much paper as I currently have. So these are all my 12 by 12 papers, and then from here are my 11 by 8.5 papers. This is the paper that I use for my business cards, and then I have miscellaneous papers and stuff, and other paper crafting stuff down there. I do know that I have a spot where it is just leftovers from Stampin' Up's Paper Pumpkin, which I have had too many of those. And then up in here I have more bulbs for my wax melters. I have quite a few of those hanging out around here. I have a good collection that is hidden there on that shelving unit. But I have more paper here, books, more books. This whole thing, this is a 3 set. Let me see if I can pull this out. All right. So this is what I call 1 by 3 of those cubbies. And so I have a bunch of books and crochet patterns. That's my first attempt at cataloging my crochet patterns I had. So there's a lot in there. That's, I think, a 3-inch binder. That's a 3-inch binder. Then I have more knit and crochet books down there. And more, those are miscellaneous books. So like educational books and such down there. And more knitting and crochet books. And more educational books. And then we're getting back into some more stamping stuff. So Down in here I have stamp sets, and I have more ribbons and embellishments and all of that stuff. More stamp sets. If I could talk, it'd be great. I have more stamp sets down here, as well as this is where I keep my die cuts, or my metal dies for the Big Shot Plus that I have. And then down here I have, oh no, punches. These are all of my Stampin' Up! Punches that I wanted to keep. That is just miscellaneous stuff that didn't have a home. The same thing goes with these two shelves. This is kind of general everything. I've got compression gloves for when I'm hurting in different colors. My safety eyes, envelopes, some notebooks, because I wanted to try journaling, and paper journaling just does not work for me. So yeah. Here I have my Tunisian crochet hooks, some knitting needles, and such. Those are my blocking pads. More crochet stuff is in there. And then up in here I have the stuff to do tatting. So that's going to be coming up here at some point in time. Then we're getting over to the cross stitch. Yes, I do that too. So I have cross stitch stuff in here, as well as needlepoint stuff. Here's some cross stitch Ada. I'm thinking that that's how you pronounce it. That's how I've always pronounced it. More miscellaneous stamp sets are hanging out up there. And I'm smart. I do have safety glasses for when I'm working on my jewelry. So this is all of my jewelry stuff. I have a whole bunch of beads and such. My mother-in-law also was a jewelry dabbler, so I have all of her stuff in here as well. And so that's these two metal containers that are in there are from her. But I have this is jewelry making stuff and beads. This is jewelry making stuff and more beads. And then these are the eyelets to use with the crocodile, more beads, and just other miscellaneous stuff up there. Also, how are you a crafter unless you have a spirograph? So have that. We're good. While I was rearranging some stuff, now I need to fix my rug because now my rug's all messed up, but oh well, I'll get to that in a bit. When I was working on getting this dechaosed for this, I did find out more yarn that I had in stock for these two totes. If you recognize that kind of stuff. I don't know if I showed the bags, but in this bag, there's my notes. But in this bag, I do have the parts from the roll for color. So I am going to be getting back to that this year. These are all bags of yarn that's already been used. Yarn that has not been used is down in there. We did have a little bit of a tragedy. Yeah, so that's got to be fixed. But these particular yarns here, besides the head, these yarns are going to be used in an upcoming Twitch project. Oh, and yeah, I forgot to show this. So, one of my husband's hobbies is Hot Wheels. And so I got caught up now in collecting Barbie Hot Wheels. So So I think I'm pretty much caught up. There is one set that I saw recently at his friend's house that I'm eyeing up. I wouldn't mind getting. However, well, we'll see if it comes. But not all of these are Barbie. I do have, that's a Barbie, but I do have Spyro up there as well as a Harry Potter car and the dragon. I needed the dragon. So that was my Lair tour. I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, please like, share, and please consider subscribing. If you think that you're subscribed, just double check to make sure you are, because I know that YouTube is doing their funky thing and just, spontaneously unsubscribing people from stuff. So, yeah, I would love to have you here. I still am working on my 500 subscribers by my birthday, which is there at the beginning of March. So I would greatly love to have you here. And until next time, bye!